are you all feeling? I'm a bit tired, we had a meeting all day today. But great to be here, and great to see all these bright young faces, eager people. I actually went to this university many moons ago, and yeah, it was strange kind of walking around. It was, you know, landmarks of, I remember not far down there where the old refectory used to be, and you know, as an Aboriginal activist then fighting against the very racist legislation that was in place, the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island Act, and speaking at the Reflect, and I remember having black scents and flour thrown at me. So I've had good memories and bad memories about the University of Queensland. I think, you know, in some ways, you know, hopefully we've come a long way since that. That's, you know, well over 30 years ago. So I'd like to talk a bit about our nation. Call it Kooma, but the proper pronunciation is Wormu. So we're from the Wormu Nation in southwest Queensland. And if you can kind of understand a bit of the history, I think history is always really important, because in that particular part of our world there, a lot of things changed about 150 years ago when the Maranoa Pastoral Holdings decided that they wanted to turn it into a pastoral region. And so a lot of traditional lands were taken, you know, there were a lot of massacres that happened. And so in one sense what happened was that we became slaves within our own traditional country. And so the history of our family, and my family and many of us, you know, through there, is a very similar kind of story in that, you know, for, you know, the four or five generations before me, people worked on sheep and cattle properties, which was on their traditional country, but, you know, what I call slave conditions. They weren't paid, worked extremely long hours, you know, got up before daybreak in the morning, worked until well into the night, you know, got rations. And when you come from that kind of background, I guess it really in some ways shapes your life and shapes the kind of person you can become. And as young people, I think we're all very idealistic, and we believe that we can influence and be part of social change. But through that idealism as well, I think for me there was also a sense of anguish and a lot of anger. And it would be remiss of me to think that I wasn't anything but that in my younger life. And I think the anger just stems from the injustices that became part of, you know, their daily living in that area. And for people like my grandmother and my grandfather and aunts and uncles and that, to ever believe that we would ever walk on our traditional country again and be owners and managers of some of our country was something that, you know, certainly my mother never ever believed that would happen in her lifetime. And so when the Indigenous Land Corporation had an acquisition program, and we put an application in then, and through that process in '99 we were granted the ownership of two properties, Murramurra and Bendy Downs. And it was a very stark reminder, I think, for a lot of people about, I guess, about how long it had taken for us to ever get a sense of, you know, getting reconnected with country again. But at the same time, there was also that incredible, you know, feeling of happiness, absolute joy, that here we are and we've got our country back. Now, it's very different to go from being a slave to becoming a manager. And one thing is that we have no we don't have that corporate history. We don't have 3 or 4 or 5 generations of our family. We haven't inherited that kind of knowledge about how you run a particular, pastoral property or what you're supposed to do. And so the 1st of July 2000 was when we actually, the property was vested to us, and we walked for the first time in our country. So that's only 10 years ago, which in the spec of time, it's not very long, is it? 10 years, very, very short space of time. And the first few years was very difficult because one of the problems about these kind of acquisitions, you probably read a lot of stories about it, it sounds wonderful, and you think, oh, blackfellas, they're getting everything again. The thing about it though was that when the properties were handed back, for 5 generations before we got the property back, in terms of the non-Indigenous families who lived and worked there, Murra had the finest merino wool clip known, throughout the district and certainly throughout Queensland. It was a thriving pastoral property. They made lots of money out of it, lots and lots of money. Now, when ILC purchased the property, they destocked it, and I say destocked and deflocked. There were planes, there were 4-wheel drives, there was everything that would be useful to make a viable economic base for your community. But when we walked in, and there was a rickety old table that was left, and the keys were left on that table, so we never had any of those fancy, handover ceremonies that you see, all those wonderful photos and smiling faces and all that. Didn't have that at all. And it says a lot about the kind of relationships that government agencies and local government included have with communities out in the southwest Queensland area. It's very tough country. And so from that day, we had lots of, a lot of philosophical discussions about, what was going to happen, and we had huge meetings in Cunnamulla, which is the closest large town next to us, about an hour and a quarter from the property. And what we decided was that what we would do would be to go with a traditional structure. So within our mob, we've got 16 clan groups, and that forms our nation. And so with each clan group, only your family can nominate you to be the clan rep. And our first management committee, for want of a better word, was made up of all of the clan reps and all of our elders. So the elder of each of our clans actually made up the first management committee that we had. Now, the thing about that is that from where I'm looking, it's really it's an enlightening process to be involved in that, I'm here because my clan decided that they think that I've got the qualities that are right and I'm a good advocate or whatever it might be. But if, and I'm an emu, so I'm Neuron clan, right? I'm from the emu people. But the brown snake people, for example, they may not like me at all, but they can't get rid of me. They can't come and vote me out. So you can't stack votes, you can't, do all of the lobbying and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't matter, it doesn't work at all. And so we've kind of fallen into, consensual decision-making processes, which traditionally is how things were always done. So that's the structure that we have. In 2004, my mother stepped down. And so my clan nominated me to become involved. And I've been chairperson of Kooma Traditional Owners now since 2004. And anyone who's in that kind of position, you bring with you all of your ideas, all of your experiences that you've had, and you hope that you've got the ability to try and shape things. You try to have a vision about, you know, what you see in the future for the for your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so on. And I guess I came with a whole lot of well, probably radical ideas in some ways, in that I believe that if we're going to own and manage our own country, then we have to do that. There's something in this room, really. Excuse me. Because it's very easy to sit back and you've probably heard a lot about kind of welfare reform and all that kind of thing. It's very easy to stay in that kind of mould where you allow other people to do the thinking for you. And I think what we've tried to do is to maintain some kind of cultural integrity into our processes and ensure that any of the decisions that we've made, we know that we can stand up in any forum, anywhere, any time, and be accountable and be responsible for the decisions that we make. They're good principles to have within your work, you know, in your work ethic. Certainly for all of you, because you're all young, so you've got a long way to go yet. Some of you not so young. So Kooma Traditional Owners, whilst we decided that we, you know, couldn't run a pastoral company or whatever, we had to start from scratch. And so what happened was that we started leasing some of the country and adjusting some of the country for pastoral use. And the problem with that decision, I guess, is that it went against everything that people were fighting for and believed in. And that is that we clearly understood that Western management practices of grazing did nothing but completely destroy and annihilate the environment. It was kind of like I would say it's like a cultural genocide on the environment in some ways. In that there's introduced species of, you know, birds, and you've got feral goats, you've got feral cats, you've got feral everything out there, feral pigs. Quite a few feral people turn up from now, by the way. And you know, so with all of that in mind, I think we've really decided to concentrate our efforts on cultural heritage management and also conservation land management. Now, those decisions were based on a whole range of things, and the main thing is about location. You know, you hear it, location, location. And for us, we're in one of the priority bioregions within the National Reserve System. That is the Mulga bioregion. We're in the Mulga bioregion. We have about 23 or more regional ecosystems within the two properties that we have. We have 40 kilometres of the Brisbane River that runs through the property, and that river is mostly dry, but near Murramurra Homestead we have a permanent waterhole, the only permanent waterhole on the whole Brisbane River, which is about 4 or 5 kilometres long. And we also have about 40 ephemeral lakes. Now, if you don't know about wetlands ephemeral wetlands are really interesting ecologically. When they're dry, they're just like clay pans, or you just walk over and you wouldn't know anything was there. But as soon as the water comes, it's like, I always say it's magic. That's the best way to describe it, because suddenly all this new life form just begins to happen. And out there we have the crucifix frog, and it's become like a little symbol, the crucifix frog, and we call our nature refuge that we've put under. We've put about a third of our country under nature refuge. And if you don't know about what nature refuges are, they're legal covenants that go on your property. So it's a decision about managing for the future, protecting our country for the future. And the name of that is Yamba Dun Durangala, which is place of the happy frogs. And you know, if any of you see those kind of wetlands where the water comes down and they're burrowing frogs, they can just sit under the ground for years and years and years. But as soon as that first drop of rain comes, you'll just see it all appear out of nowhere. It's just fantastic. So in some ways, the location, you know, dictated, I guess, a lot about the way forward for us and the way that we would manage our country. The other part of what we do there is, I think that in the early days we have absolutely no money, and we still have very little money that's not, you know, a grant or something like that from the government. But a lot of what we did was capacity building, so that I was very big on training. I think training is really, really important. Training not for the one of, you know, just getting a piece of paper at the end of the day to say, oh, I've completed this course. But what I was able to witness, you know, as a chairperson was the most amazing thing, because I saw people who had very basic literacy skills, some who had almost no literacy skills, and we started to do things like Certificate 2s in rural production, you know, learning basic chainsaw, welding, those kind of things. And we did first aid training, how to work in remote communities, and you know, how to check your vehicles, what do you do, you know, in emergencies, and the fire comes, fire management, all of those kind of things. And then we had 15 people who completed a Certificate 2 in Land and Conservation Management. And that was a full-time, that was a 12-month course. Now all of those courses, and the importance of them is that they were all delivered on country at Murra. So we kind of want to fight with the federal government, whose thing is always, there's a TAFE not far. You know, you can go to Roma TAFE, or you can go up to Longreach. You can go up to the TAFE up in Longreach. But because we actually held, and they're all national accredited courses, we ended up with this great, you know, core group of people now that we have. And the people who came through those courses, why I like to talk about it is that you got people who used to just hold their head like this, honestly. Some of the trainers would come in, you know, they're all mostly all white fellas are trainers, and people would have their heads down like this. And one of those people in particular has now just got a job as our first community ranger. Just started about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what I saw in him was this man who had absolutely no self-esteem, who'd spent all of his life either managing properties, doing lots of labouring work, doing lots of fencing, always been a worker though all of his life. But through the training and through him being involved in that training course, you know, rather than saying, oh, yeah, I'll leave that to someone else, or you can, whenever we have things now, it's just there, sharing stories, but more importantly, being able to articulate the importance of country, what country means to him. And so, you know, when you come there, you'll see, you know, Ranger Jeffrey walking around, you can't miss him, he's a big guy. And, you know, another ranger, we've got 2 rangers on board, Bill Speeding, another wonderful man. But it's those little wins that you have in your life that really, they just make a difference in how you view the world. And I guess that leads into how we became involved in Engineers Without Borders and Melbourne Water. It's those things where, you know, they say sometimes, you know, the stars are all lined up and, you know, things happen. I think the fact that Liz Skinner and I both went to the Green School at Barmah Forest, met there, and I invited Liz and her friend Catherine, but Catherine couldn't come up. I said, look, yeah, come up. I'd love to have you up there. I say it to everyone, you're all welcome there, anytime. But then Liz actually made the effort to come up there. And in all honesty, I didn't actually, in my head, even realise that she was an engineer. It was just, you know, that thing of, oh, well, come up, have a look. And then when Liz got there, she started, you know, talking about a lot of the erosion that was occurring on the river. Huge, you know, huge problems with erosion in that country. Because, you know, lots of drought. We went through huge, you know, many years of drought. And of course, recently we just had the biggest flood we've had since 1890. So, you know, it's either one thing or the other, and that's kind of part of the Australian climate, isn't it? From there, I guess we had a bit of a discussion about something that was really annoying me and a lot of our people, and the fact that one of the practices of people who lived on properties well, they still do it. It's not that it doesn't happen now, but you know, for 150 years or more, was that the dumps were always on the river. So everything, whatever it was, you dumped it right next to the river. Your old fencing gear, your old batteries, your old cars, your old wife or husband or whatever it was, you dumped them on the river. And so, when the next lot of water come, yep, you'd hope it would just end up down there. No one cared. It was like out of sight, out of mind. You didn't care where it ended up. And so, as we walk around our property, you know, you could just see these areas of just absolute, like you think, how can people look after, a country like this? And so we looked at a waste management project, and I think the first bit of funding came through ANZ to do a bit of a scoping exercise, and from there we had a couple of people from Engineers Without Borders who came up, and that's how it really all began. And you know, we can look back now 5 years, you know, later, and you go, well, how's it been? You know, what do you really think of it? Has it worked? Hasn't it worked? What are the good things? What are the bad things? I think there are some great lessons to learn. I think one of the things about EWB is about that the community's got to have the capacity. So the community's got to want to have something. It's no good anyone. You can have all the good intent in the world, and you can travel the world, and you can just turn up somewhere and say, I really want to help you. You know, I love your people, you know, I love your culture, I really want to do something for you. But if the community isn't ready for that, then recipes for disaster most of the time, the majority of the time. But I think this was one of where we just let it just really has evolved. It's been a relationship that's just evolved. And after the waste management project happened, we had a green school, and at the green school everyone put their gloves and working boots on and whatever, and then we just started picking up rubbish. And there was a local fellow who we got to come and just take some of the car bodies and some of the rubbish. He's actually made a business out of this now, so we encouraged him, and he's become a business owner now of all of the dead cars and dead whatever else is around the place. So, and from there, Virgin Blue, they got a call that there was some funding available through Virgin Blue. And so EWB rang us and said, you know, would you like to, you know, be involved in this? And we'd done a bit of a scoping exercise about energy because, you know, one of the things about our people is that, you know, you have some really bad habits. I think most of us have some very bad habits when it comes to energy, how we relate to energy, the kind of respect that we have for energy. And, you know, we're a nation of bad habits. Sorry. But, you know, love to leave lights on. You know, it's like a doll's house when you go to Murra. Well, not so bad now since we had EWB there. We do turn off lights. But before it was like every light was on. Every light in the whole homestead was on. And we have quite a bit of infrastructure there. We have an old, you know, colonial kind of house, and we've got a caretaker's cottage, and we've got a worker's cottage. We've got a shearing shed and shearing accommodation at Murra, and similar at Bendy Downs as well. But after the energy audit, we got some funding through Virgin Blue, and from there we had a team that came up from EWB with Marco. There's some people here involved in that, and they can talk more about that. But again, the wonderful thing about the team, I think, is that one of the key principles was to make sure that all the way along within the process that our people were involved, that Kooma people were involved. And so while you had the technical expertise there, you had the Kooma people who were involved in the project doing the labouring or whatever. But what happens? I think there's something about the country too and the landscape. The landscape can really embrace you if you allow it to. And I think in a lot of ways that's what's happened when people come there. And because of that, a lot of storytelling happens, a lot of, you know, I guess just exchange of ideas, exchange about, you know, who your family is and, you know, different stories that you have. And so there's this informal kind of cross-cultural training that occurs through these projects. And it's fantastic, I think, to see it and to hear the stories. And through that as well, we decided to get involved with Melbourne Water. And so there's this very interesting thing that goes on now between Melbourne Water and EWB people when they get together. I sit back and watch because it's very interesting, because you see everyone's telling all their best yarn about what they did at Murra or what they did at Bendy Downs and who they saw and whether they went, you know, kangaroo shooting or pig hunting or whatever it was. And so there's this very healthy kind of, it's a kind of competitiveness, but I know there's something going on there anyway. And that partnership was formalised last February, I think it was, that we signed off on that partnership with Engineers Without Borders and Melbourne Water. And what it has brought to our part of the world, because people go, Melbourne Water, you know, why would you, why are you involved with Melbourne Water? But what it has done is allowed, I think, the most critical thing for people in our region. Have any of you been born in a country town? Hands up. You know what it's like when you're in a country town. You have that sense of isolation, that sense of parochialness sometimes. Some people are fortunate enough to get out of there, but a lot of people, you know, aren't so fortunate. And what it's brought, though, to people in our part of the world is that it's encouraged people to think outside the boundary gate, is a way that I term it. So that you're not just thinking about your little patch of dirt every day, or how important, how meaningful that is to you. It's about those partnerships and those relationships that are building now. Encourage our people to think beyond Murray and Benny Downs, to think beyond Cunnamulla, and to know that there's a whole world out there waiting for people. And you may think, oh, well, I'm not saying anything new to you. But for people who have very little opportunity within their life to go from those country towns, it really does mean something. And a wonderful thing has happened along the way with EWB as well, in that we've had Emu Fest, which is a festival that we've only had for a couple of years, and we have it in July. And the idea was just to bring young people from Cunnamulla and from other local towns. We had some people from Charleville last year. And the idea is just to get the kids out there and to teach them culture, talk about history, do some art and craft with them. And for the first time last year, we thought, well, let's get EWB people up there, people involved in the solar energy project. And so we had people from EWB who came and did a workshop with all of these young kids from Cunnamulla. And it was just absolutely amazing, because these kids still talk about that. They still talk about their pizza boxes, and of course there wasn't quite enough sun that day for the cakes to cook or whatever. But they had a mobile unit. Where did it come from? Not here, eh? Where was it from?
It was QUT.
I think QUT has a mobile unit, mobile education unit. And so they brought that out. And, those kind of things are inspirational, because young people will not forget those things. They'll go back and go, wow, that was just amazing. I didn't know that that's how wind worked. I didn't know how those things worked. And they all did drawings, and it was just fantastic experience. With I hope you don't mind me digressing, talking a bit about Melbourne Water, but Melbourne Water has been an important partner as well, in that we've done a lot of data collection for, we actually walked 32 of the wetlands and did a lot of data collection on them last year. And so this year, when the Melbourne Water team comes up, we're going to do a lot more work on that permanent water hole. Now, in southwest Queensland, if any of you want to do any kind of research on that particular area out there, you'll find almost nothing has been written about it. It's just one of those forgotten places, those parts of the world where somehow, whatever it was, no one ended up, going there. So you don't have all those, maybe good too, some of those anthropological studies, or, archaeologists, and a lot of the other studies that have been on other nations, linguists and all of that kind of work. Very, very little has been done on the southwest Queensland region at all. And so any opportunity that we have, we've got to grab, we've got to, take hold of it and run with it. And I'm hoping that that's what we're doing there. We're trying to create an environment for people, not only for our own people, but we're also trying to create, I guess, an environment for non-Indigenous Australia to feel comfortable that they can come to a very remote location. And it is very remote. When you're out there, you feel, I'm a long, long way from home here. Even though we're not far from Cunnamulla, like I said. But it is remote, and it is an isolated community. And being part of the EWB challenge, I think, has also, it's just a great thing, I think, for people to know that there are all of these engineering students who are putting their minds, or we're hoping that they're all putting their minds, to creating, something fantastic and amazing, as they did with Cambodia. And the reason why we chose Bendy Downs shearing shed is that because we don't have any shearing happening there, or we don't have sheep there, or we have some cattle being ingested. We've decided to decommission the shearing shed. But the whole space, to me, the shearing shed is this wonderful space. There's a whole history there. And you know, when you're just standing in that shearing shed, it's like any place you go to, if you're allowed it, you know, just let yourself go with it. It actually talks to you about, you know, the people's lives, people who've come and gone through there. And I always think about, you know, the kind of work conditions that people had for a very long time. And the wonderful thing about that, that history, I think too, is that ownership that a lot of our people have, because a lot of our people worked at Murra and Bendy Downs in their lifetimes. And we still have a lot of our people, including some of our elders, who have got living memory, you know, of being there in the 1950s and being there in the 1960s, and some of those stories that they can tell you about things that happened. So it's not just, you know, a shearing shed. We hope that we can turn it into a living space, a space where people can come. We can maybe have art exhibitions. Who knows what we can do with it? But it's not far. There are a couple of wetlands very close by to it, and it's almost smack bang in the middle of the nature refuge. So within itself, it's a great location, and we hope that the future that we have there is to look at nature-based tourism. And it's always hard when you're an Aboriginal group, because people always go, they always think of Aboriginal people, oh, you know, you stand with your, you know, one leg on the other and you've got a spear in your hand and the sunset's happening somewhere down over there. And it's really hard to get out of that kind of mould, I think. And so what we, I think what we're really trying to create there is nothing to do with any of that. It's about just getting good people there, good-minded people, people who've got a commitment to looking after the environment and caring about things, and bring them there, sharing stories, you know, sharing our culture. There are some fantastic, amazing cultural sites, and some of the people who've already been to Murra still haven't seen all of them. You know, we have one site that's got hundreds of grinding grooves. You all know what grinding grooves are, I presume. Anyone who doesn't? No. All very well educated people here, I must say. And rock wells. You know, there's lots of rock wells, and there are a lot of very, very old scarred trees. And so everywhere for us where we walk is this whole amazing cultural history. And I think one of the beautiful, you know, when beautiful things happened in your life was going back to our country for the first time and sitting on the Nevine River and just being able to put my hand in one of those grinding grooves and think, you know, gee, you know, one of my great-great-grannies probably was grinding, you know, nardoo seeds here. And that's an amazing experience. I mean, it's similar to when, you know, some of my friends go back to Ireland and they come back and share stories with me. Very, very similar kind of feeling. So we get that sense of place, of who you are, and it kind of cements your identity and you know, that knowing that you no longer have to question who you are and somehow, you know, try to be accountable to someone else for whoever they believe your identity is. So, you know, there are a lot of wonderful things happening out there, and for those people who are in the EWB Challenge, if you have an opportunity to come up there, it would be great for you to come up there. And I know Dan Loudon said, please don't invite them up there. You can have 6,000 students at your doorstep. Well, you know, great. If you can get that many people. You know, there's plenty of country there, just bring a swag and whatever. Maybe you can all hunt kangaroo for a feed. But no, I do invite you up there because I think any project that you're involved in, anything within your life, and when you're in the first year at uni, it can be life-changing for you. You can become a person who really becomes committed to social justice and to social change, or you can just become, you know, someone who is very ego-driven, who cares about themselves and just wants to make money. Everyone has their own path in life, and it's all about choices at the end of the day. You know, there are a lot of people in this world who can combine the two. They can still make money, but they can still contribute to the world. But whatever it is that you decide to do in your lives, at the end of the day, whatever it is that you do, make sure that you understand, you have full knowledge that all of your actions you are accountable for, all of your actions you are responsible for, and it may not have a lot of meaning when you're younger, but as you get older, you certainly do. Don't ever live with regrets. There's no point, even if you're in your 20s and 30s going, you know, I wish I would have done this, or I should have done this, or something else. Because the thing about life is that whatever happened yesterday, you cannot change. There's no way you can change it. You know, you can sit and you can have meaningful discussions, you can analyse it, you can philosophise about it, you know. You can make yourself, you know, look really deadly and fantastic and amazing, or you can just put yourself down and feel really depressed. But whatever it is, you can't change, you know, what happened yesterday. You can't. It's impossible. What you can do, though, is take hold of what's happening now in the world. We're at a time in the world where if there was ever a time where people need to reach deep within their own heart and with their own soul and within their own spirituality, I think now is the time. Because with all of the incredible changes that are occurring in the world, and they're occurring at a rate so fast, it's kind of head spinning in some ways. And a lot of older people go, you know, my head just goes like this. I never would have believed that all of these things could have happened just so quickly within our time. While we're speaking, there are native species disappearing within Australia. Ditto, ditto overseas, ditto, ditto to everything, you know. Of course we know that's happening. But within this country that you all are calling home, we need to take some responsibility. We need to do something about this. We need to be talking about it and educating ourselves and everyone around us. Because it really bothers me to think the number, not only of plants that have disappeared, the number of animals and insects and everything that's going. It's just going, and it's like, who actually cares about it? And those people who do care, oh, there they go, the tree huggers again, oh, the greenies or whatever they are. And it's a real indictment on the society that we live in, that people end up with those kind of attitudes. So this is life-changing, it's life-forming as well. And the work that you're doing, and I understand there's all different, you know, things that you do within engineering, there's mechanical and blah, 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 blah. I don't know all the other things, and I don't want to try to be fancy and, you know, rattle them all off.
Nothing important.
But any work that you do in life, regardless of what it is, only has meaning if it brings some kind of happiness to somebody, you know. If it doesn't bring someone absolute joy or happiness, then you really need to re-examine what you're doing. It's, you know, it's got to be something that's fulfilling for yourself, and it's got to be something that is fulfilling. And don't be afraid to be ambitious, and don't be afraid to be challenging. Don't be afraid to do what no one else does. I organised a demonstration on Circular Quay in 1972 and marched on Zelman Cohen's office, you know, fighting against Kamalko. And, you know, I didn't think twice about it. And I look back now and I think, well, okay, I did that, and I believed in it. It was important because I see that the damage that is being done, not only within Australia but overseas as well, and the kind of damage that's being done with mining. And for those people who are involved in the mining fraternity, it's one of those areas where you do need to take stock of every step of the way of what you're doing, because within our culture, you know, there are a lot of stories around mining, and you can't ever think that if you keep drilling holes that are a mile underground or 2 miles or 3 miles, and you just keep doing it, no, oh, pick over there, yeah, that's good, we got something there, let's go down, go down, go down. It's all going to have some. Everything has cause and effect, don't they? So it may happen within your lifetime where you actually will feel the effect of those kind of things, because those kind of things are starting to occur. Yes, we did have earthquakes and we had a whole lot of other things, and they're all part of nature before mining. And you'll say, well, probably still would have occurred. But it's what we're doing to speed up the process of these things. These are all untried things that we are doing now. And at the end, there's not one of us who is a Ngangara, a creator. There's not one of us who knows how to make a mountain. There's not one of us who knows how to make a river. There's not one of us who knows how to make a kangaroo or anything else. So respect what is around you. In respecting yourself, you can respect the land, you can respect the water and the rivers, you can respect other peoples, different cultures and ideas, and you can also learn to respect and build a relationship up with animals and birds. Because once you do that, and for those people who take the time out to develop that relationship with nature, those things tell you things. You know, you'll read stories where the cattle went running west one day in Eidsvold, and everyone's freaking out. All these cattle, they've all gone mad, the cattle have gone crazy. 2 days later there was an earthquake. You know, the birds tell you things. If you're in the bush and you're lost, you know, people will tell you. People who do, you know, courses or, you know, Girl Guides or Boy Scouts or whatever. You know, follow the birds. Birds can tell you if the water's poison or if it's not poison. They can show you where there's other food. And you may go, oh, that's wishy-washy, oh, that's real hippie, whatever. But those kind of life skills and those survival skills are things that instinctively you may have, but if you don't have, you should make sure that you go and become involved in things that can teach you those skills. I'm saying to my children now, you know, maybe not you, but your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren may need to know how to go and catch a fish, or how to spear a fish, or how to spear a kangaroo or something else, how to look for water when there's no water left. You don't want to think that things can happen in that way, because I like to be positive, you know, within my own outlook on life. I love to be a positive kind of person. But you also have to be a realist as well. And this is what I do. I just kind of just go on and on, don't I? I've really enjoyed it though. I've enjoyed being here, and I've enjoyed talking to you. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and listen to me. There's probably a lot more that I could say, but you know, Lizzie's there because she's saying there's time. There's time.
You're the worst person to try and time keep Portia, because you're sitting there going, you don't look, so I just have to stand up and force my way to the front.
But any questions?
Yeah.
I guess that's where we've come to.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for sharing this very good. It's just a practical question. How many people live on this property? Which kind of...
Well, we don't have many people permanently living. There's about 10 now, or maybe a bit more than that now, who live there permanently. And but the idea of what we're doing is to be able to build a community in the future, so that we have an ability to supply water and power and whatever is needed for, you know, a sustainable community. You would have heard all that. But that's the whole dream that we have, I guess. And we're a long way off it. But the more people that can come and be a part of all the projects that we're doing, you know, and a lot of them go back to Connemara or go back to wherever they're, you know, living now. But I think in the long term, at the very least, we want to, in the next 12 months, 2 years, at least to have accommodation for 16, even if we have 16 dongas, for example. So a place where each clan, when they come out, they know, look, I can come here, I've got somewhere where I can leave my things and lock them up or whatever it is that I need to do. And yeah, that's what we're about. We'd like to see a community living there in the future. That's what all this works for. Yeah. But you know, in the meantime, we're just having a good time.
Does anyone else have any questions? Probably got, do you mind 10 minutes of questions?
Okay.
Yeah, could you please tell me more about the cultural significance of the Kooma clans and the dream time of the region, referring to the Indigenous community called the Hairless Ones, which was known to drink the water from this area of the Great Artesian Basin.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of those loaded questions. We call ourselves a river people. So our nation, on the western boundary we have the Widjigawera River. You can get a map so you can see it. And then we've got the Kneebine, we've got the Mungalala, the Wallam, and the Kneebine comes into the Paterson. Then on the eastern boundary we have the Ballon, which is where St George is. And they all flow down into the Kalgoorlie floodplain, which is our southern boundary. And as water people, a lot of our stories are based around the rivers, and you know, our stories about the rainbow serpent and the spirit that lives within the water is really, really sacred to us. And part of the journey that we just did right from Murramurra, we started at Murramurra on the 3rd of April, and we went all the way down to the mouth of the Murray. It was the Healing the River ceremony, so we did it, you know, over 10 or 11 days. And part of that was that within our belief, because of the way water is being managed, engineered and absolutely abused at the moment, what's happened culturally is that there are very special places where our spirit beings can come out, and they've closed up. And so part of that ceremony is to, I guess, get back in touch with the spirit of the rivers, and to allow those openings to occur through ceremony. Did any of you hear about that ceremony, the Healing the River ceremony? Anybody? Nobody. Okay, well next year we're hoping to do it again like every Easter. So next year anyone can come. Sophie, who's here, came on it. And I've no doubt for Sophie it was a life-changing experience. And we had 3 different nations who were dancing in a different place. So we went from Murramurra down to Brewarrina, Mount Gundabooka, Wilcannia, you know, Murray Bridge, Menindee, so we went right down the Coorong. And it's also about bringing awareness about what's happening within the rivers. you know, who would have ever thought that water would be a commodity in the way that it is now? Who would have ever thought? There's no way, you know, my mother's lifetime she ever would have thought that they'd had to buy water, or that, you know, you'd be exchanging money and trading water in the way that it is now. So life has changed very rapidly in a very short space of time because, you know, as you know, our people are here for thousands and thousands of years. And so it's that cultural heritage that's absolutely intrinsic to our nature. Our inherent rights of who we are as a people and as a nation are very much part of and tied up with all of those things that are part of the river and that you know, connection that we have not only with the rivers but with the land as well. Because it's very difficult for us to talk about water in isolation without how that relationship occurs within the land around it. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it gives me more important insights.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm part of the solar thermal project, and at the moment we're looking at placing hundreds of metres squares of solar panels in the land, and I just want to know what would any plans, reactions be, like what kind of cultural impact would that have to the community?
We have 56 panels that have been installed by Engineers Without Borders, and the cultural impact it had was that yeah, we think it's the greatest thing that's happened out there for us. You know, not only, look, it may not save us lots of money in the long run, but I think, sorry Mark, I'm not supposed to say that properly, but I think what it does is that it helps people, you know, to think about doing business in different ways. So you don't ever, you know, you don't restrict yourself to just one thing. Oh, this is what I'm going to do in my life. I'm going to go to uni, and I'm going to be a teacher, and, you know, I'm going to get married and have 5 kids, and that's it. You know, it's about encouraging people to go, yeah, well, you can get married and have 5 kids, but there's a whole lot of other things that you can do as well. And I think that's what the solar panels have done. They've been a great talking point within our community. And not only within the Aboriginal community, but a lot of the white fellas in the district as well have been amazed that we've not only talked about doing it, we've actually done it now, and are coming to, you know, have a look at it and see how it works. And, you know, it's probably difficult, but the impact that something like that can have on those small communities, it's going to be felt for generations to come. And, you know, more and more people will be being encouraged now. And, you know, you hear people talking about solar energy now, which I never heard, and I grew up in the town, you know what I mean, Kalanoa. So it's really good.
Just one question here and a question at the back, and then I think we'll have to call it quits. So,
just back to the water thing. Since water is so important, would you say that there's like good attitudes towards using recycled water, if the community knows that it's like high quality water?
Recycled water. That's a different kettle of fish.
And not specifically for drinking, but for reuse, like in toilets or irrigation or showers or something like that.
Oh, the answer to toilets is compost toilets. You know,
Oh, no.
I should sell compost toilets. I reckon I'd make $50 million if I did. Because I'm such a great believer in them. I just think toilets are the biggest waste of water that we have in this country, and why anyone, you know, would think that we don't need composting toilets, I don't know. I think that more and more people now are looking at grey water and, you know, its uses.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you live and have to save water and conserve water, then to get good grey water, I think it's an important thing to do within the future. And it's, you know, these are really easy things to do. I've lived like this for a long time, so I know it's possible, you know. If you want a green lawn, you just let the old hose out and you try and change it now and then, and so you get bits of green patches. But, you know, more than that, I'm sure other people do better things than that with their grey water. I just don't have the time. But I think that what you need to do, if we start educating all of the young people now about this, then we can see huge changes. I mean, my little granddaughter's like 5, and anyone comes in the house, hurry up, get out of the shower. You know, you're not supposed to be in there. You know what I mean? Like, it's really easy to get this new thinking into young people instead of, you know, that thing of, you know, it's always going to be here. And I think, really simplistically, but if every child who was born on this planet understood that there is no new water, that the water that we have is from the beginning of creation, and you know how it comes about and the cycles and whatever, it's still the same water that was created right at the very beginning. If everyone understood that, there would be a whole, you know, it'd just be a completely different relationship that people have with it. It's just that you know, the old consumer thing that's going on now, that, you know, I've got to have it all, I want it all, you know, I want it now, you know, it's all mine, the world's there for me to have. It's, if we keep going along that way and keep instilling those kind of values in people, then, you know, we're not going to get anywhere. We'll never get anywhere. And you did ask a question before about the bore water and the healing waters. You know, traditionally we never drank bore water. You know, we never drank the water that came up from underground. It was always used as a healing water. And one day we're going to have a Roman bath at Murray, I'm sure. But we did use it traditionally as a healing water, not to drink. And I think that even though it kind of meets the national standards, you know, in southwest Queensland for drinking, my aunt and my grandmothers and them talked about that water is no good, the bore water. Now, see, everyone's drinking the bore water now because that's the only water that there is, because of all the rock wells, everything's dried up. You know, the natural springs have stopped flowing and all that kind of thing. And it's very high sodium content as well. So that salt content in the end must affect your health, I think. And so a lot of people have problems, you know, with their kidneys and that. And I just go, yeah, well, it's bore water. And I'm no scientist or doctor, but I'd say that if you know, people looked at water then and did a lot more research about the quality of water. It's not just about water, it's about water quality. And sadly, that's what's happening now, is that our water quality is deteriorating. And look, I don't like the idea of drinking recycled water. It just sends shivers up my bones to think about it. But I know people say, look, it tastes really good. Scientifically, yeah, it's healthy and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's probably the way of the future if we don't change our habits, bad habits.
Would you use it for washing?
You could, of course you could use it for washing. Yeah.
Alright, I'm aware that people have a time frame, so the challenge is to ask a question and get it answered in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Liz.
Time starts now. That was, I think we said, yours was last.
Yeah, I got a quick one about the UWP challenge. When they did the first solar panels there, did they make any allowance to for an increase in the future with regard to the sharing shed? Did you have that in mind when they set that up? Maybe one of the engineers can tell us. And where can I get all this with 30 here?
It's a 10 kVA unit feeding back to an inverter that can't handle much more.
Okay, thanks.
That's
I'll
all.
do that.
That's all you can push back to the grid without registering yourself as a power station. So if you want to go over that 9.8, you're going to cough up a whole lot more capital to just register yourself.
And by the way, we wouldn't mind being a power station.
Yeah. So
We're up for any new talent, us.
You want to throw a few meg in there, or a few hundred kilowatts, and it'd be worth the money. But
and the other one, I'm also, this is totally off the topic, sorry, involved in a group who do music programs. We just came back from Emerald doing music workshops, and I was wondering whether English Fest would be teaching people how to write songs and make instruments and showing them.
Love it. People would absolutely love that.
So, maybe
And we talk about that all the time, so you should, connect up with us. Yeah. Because I think music is such a great way to heal people as well. There's someone in the... keeps saying something. This young fella here.
Yeah, I've been looking at the satellite images of the area, and Neebone Creek is all widened out. I can't tell from the satellites if it's a marsh or water holes, or is it in full flow, or is it just...
It's stopped flowing. It's just trickling now. The flow's gone. And so we'll be very soon probably back to the permanent water hole, which isn't a very big. I mean, it's only from here to, there.
Yeah, season
So it's not a huge river. But, like I said, in terms of the ecosystem, it's very important because it's the only permanent water hole. Yeah.
All right. Marco, you got a question?
I'm going to get on the soapbox. It's Stepping Stones, Saturday. If you want to learn more about EWB, Saturday morning, 8:30, pancakes. Down
Fantastic.
here,
All right.
on the website.
Great. So Cheryl, you might stand here for another little while to answer questions if people have questions.
Yeah.
So if you do have any more questions, I'm just aware that, some people aren't here or not. And as Marco said, there's a great EWB event on Saturday. If you want to learn about how to get more involved, the Stepping Stones event is called 8:30 Pancakes. Thank you. And thank you, Cheryl.